States has now reached a critical point where we must force in self-defense and defense of others against the ongoing attacks by these designated terrorist organizations. President Trump has declared drug cartels be unlawful combatants, and he says that the U.S. is now in an armed conflict with them.
And we virtually stopped drugs coming into our country by sea.
In a massive overnight operation, the DEA and ICE intercepted 200 cartel boats in the Caribbean, seizing an estimated $15 million in drugs and weapons. The joint raid, described as one of the largest maritime crackdowns in years, turned the region into a high-intensity conflict zone. Officials confirm multiple arrests and ongoing investigations as authorities move to dismantle the cartel's supply network.
Narco-terrorists aboard this vessel that he shared in this video were killed in this strike.
At 3:45 a.m., a major joint operation by DEA and ICE erupted across the Caribbean, marking one of the largest maritime crackdowns in recent years. 200 cartel vessels, disguised as fishing fleets, were found loaded with drugs and weapons worth millions of dollars. U.S. enforcement teams positioned on nearby vessels moved in with precision as helicopters using infrared surveillance circled overhead, locking onto each target. Officials confirmed the radio signal that triggered the raid came through with 3 sharp words. Targets confirmed. Execute. Execute. The high-speed pursuit that followed turned the calm Caribbean night into a scene of coordinated enforcement and decisive federal action.
The memo says, quote, the president determined that the United States is in a non-international armed conflict with these designated terrorist organizations. The memo going on to say that the United States has now reached a critical point.
Moments later, the situation escalated into a full-scale confrontation at sea. Engines roared to life as U.S. enforcement vessels moved in, and within seconds, the first exchange had begun. Floodlights pierced the darkness while rough waves battered the hulls, turning the operation into a high-intensity clash. According to officials, it wasn't a single pursuit, but a coordinated ambush across open waters. Nearly 200 cartel boats were caught between advancing U.S. vessels and the tightening perimeter of the raid, leaving no route for escape.
Just sharing this update, this comes as President Trump has declared drug cartels be unlawful combatants, and he says that the U.S. is now in an armed conflict with them. That is according to a Trump administration.
The operation, officially named Silent Wave, was launched after months of coordinated planning and intelligence gathering. Designed with surgical precision, it brought together teams from the DEA, ICE, Coast Guard, and Naval Intelligence in one unified mission. According to federal officials, the objective was clear: to dismantle the cartel's maritime network before another shipment of drugs or weapons could leave port. The operation unfolded quietly, with no sirens or warning shots, only sonar signals and encrypted radio transmissions guiding each move in real time.
Breaking news that we wanted to share. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is sharing this social media post just moments ago saying, quote, earlier this morning on President Trump's orders, I directed a lethal kinetic strike on a narco-trafficking vessel.
At 12:03 a.m. on September 1st, 2025, federal agencies launched their first direct strike under Operation Silent Wave. Drone surveillance identified a Venezuelan vessel confirmed to be a major cartel transport ship. Within seconds, the command to engage was issued, and precision-guided missiles hit the target, destroying the vessel almost instantly. 11 cartel members were confirmed dead at the scene as authorities reported large quantities of cocaine surfacing from the wreckage. The U.S. Coast Guard and Navy units immediately secured the area, marking the first successful interception of the operation.
This is courtesy of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. This is the video that he shared from his post, and you can see what appears to be a vessel exploding in flames. You can also see the word unclassified.
Officials confirmed that the initial strike marked only the start of a wider campaign. Over the following 5 weeks, the Caribbean saw a series of high-intensity enforcement actions under Operation Silent Wave. On September 15th, U.S. forces targeted a smaller cartel convoy, resulting in 3 fatalities and the loss of the shipment at sea. 4 days later, on September 19th, a joint Dominican-U.S. task force intercepted a heavily armed vessel carrying approximately 1,000 kilograms of cocaine. Nearly 1 metric ton seized in a single night, according to federal reports.
The people on board were narco-terrorists, and they were operating on a known narco-trafficking transit route. These strikes will continue until the attacks on the American people are over. And
by October 3rd, the DEA carried out what officials described as the final confirmed strike of the operation. 4 cartel operatives were neutralized en route before their vessel could enter Venezuelan waters. The boat was completely destroyed during the engagement, according to agency reports. In just over a month, the Caribbean Sea had effectively become a new front line for U.S. federal enforcement, with former smuggling corridors now designated as high-risk red zones on radar surveillance systems.
The agents were reportedly performing a routine patrol in Broadview, which is a suburb of Chicago, when the alleged assault occurred.
Chaos was triggered when, according to federal prosecutors, 2 individuals used their cars to ram the cars of Border Patrol agents. One of the agents shot a driver of one attacking vehicle. Those attackers are now charged federally.
What alarmed U.S. agencies most, according to officials, was the cartel's growing audacity. Investigators confirmed that traffickers had begun branding their cocaine shipments, stamping distinct logos onto narcotic bricks as a form of open defiance. One seized package even displayed a snake coiled around the letters DEA, a deliberate mockery aimed at federal authorities.
This has got to be a huge psychological blow to the cartels. They used to think the worst that would happen to them was they'd be interdicted and arrested. Now they're going to be blown to kingdom come.
The aftermath of the Caribbean operation has now reached U.S. soil. In a rapid nationwide sweep, DEA and ICE units launched a series of coordinated inland raids targeting cartel networks across multiple states. Within days, more than 600 suspects were taken into custody in Miami, Houston, Phoenix, and Los Angeles, marking one of the largest domestic crackdowns in years. Federal officials confirm the arrests are directly linked to Operation Silent Wave, calling it a decisive move to eliminate the cartel's remaining infrastructure inside the United States.
All right, Derek, last week at the United Nations, the president declared that these new operations have basically dried up smuggling on the ocean by boat.
Federal officials are calling the inland raids a coordinated takedown the size of a small war. According to initial reports, agents seized approximately 480 kilograms of fentanyl, a quantity capable of killing millions, along with over 420 firearms and multiple high-value cartel operatives. Authorities say the earlier Caribbean operations had exposed direct trafficking routes into U.S. neighborhoods, and once those connections were confirmed, joint DEA and ICE teams executed simultaneous strikes across multiple cities with military-level precision.
He does have a legal case, and I think it can be made that he's acting effectively as a commander-in-chief against imminent danger, that we know of drugs that are killing tens of thousands of American citizens. So I think that is the case, at least that's been heard being made.
In a major political escalation, the Pentagon officially entered the operation. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth not only authorized but directly oversaw the October 3rd strike, which destroyed a Venezuelan smuggling vessel in international waters. According to defense officials, Hegseth personally reviewed the intelligence and approved the engagement order, marking the first time a high-level Pentagon sign-off was issued for a counter-cartel strike at sea. His statement following the operation was direct and uncompromising. "These are narco-terrorists headed for our coastline."
He does have a legal case, and I think it can be made that he's acting effectively as a commander-in-chief against imminent danger, that we know of drugs that are killing tens of thousands of American citizens. So,
officials say the move marked a historic shift in U.S. policy. With the defense secretary's direct involvement, the boundary between law enforcement and military action effectively disappeared. The DEA was no longer just conducting arrests, it was neutralizing threats. Several members of Congress publicly endorsed the decision, calling it the first real defense of American waters in decades. According to federal data, the results were immediate. DEA teams intercepted vessels, ICE dismantled trafficking networks, and Pentagon support secured the region. In just a few weeks, over $15 million in cartel cargo was destroyed, hundreds of arrests were confirmed, and the United States delivered its most forceful warning yet to transnational cartels.
2-month deployment to Chicago. What you're looking at right now is video of the scene that triggered that particular radio call. Tear gas and pepper balls were deployed into the crowd after agents said they were attacked.
What began as low-profile smuggling operations has now escalated into a full-scale transnational enforcement campaign, according to U.S. officials. Intelligence reports confirm that the Caribbean Sea has effectively become a monitored zone, with joint DEA, ICE, and military patrols maintaining 24-hour surveillance. The crackdown has left cartel leaders on high alert and sources say remaining vessels are rerouting or abandoning sea corridors entirely. For those still attempting to navigate the region, the threat is no longer Coast Guard patrols. It's precision targeting from federal strike units.
They say preliminary forensic evidence found the victim's wound was, quote, consistent with a gunshot injury. Officers shot and killed the suspect, but he offered no details on who they were or if they were affiliated with any group.
But while diplomats traded statements and hashtags flew, cartels went silent. That was the real shift. Smugglers began abandoning sea routes overnight. The fear was visible, coastal radio traffic went dead, supply lines paused, and new boats stayed docked. The world might have been debating legality, but the underworld was feeling panic. Because this wasn't the end. Not even close. Across the Atlantic, whispers already spread of new smuggling routes, riskier, longer, but determined. The ocean forgets fast, but justice doesn't. Every shattered hull, every lost shipment, every cartel casualty left a mark. As the final report closed, one line stood out. This was Operation Silent Wave. 200 cartel boats burned, and the storm is far from over. Like the video and hit the subscribe button to get more updates.